If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Cassandra, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 225 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be the most creatively inspiring, vampire-ish episode of all time. With me is the amazing Tonya Todd, author, actress, podcaster, director. We're diving deep into the world of independent, creative movie making, book writing. If you want to be inspired, you've come to the right place. That's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, last week, Darcy Monet joined me, the hidden rose of Napoleon Dynamite. That's right, she was the voice that sang the rose in Napoleon Dynamite, uncredited. We share the whole story. That was part of our Napoleon Dynamite 20th anniversary celebration. But speaking of celebrations, Tonya Todd is here. She's now becoming a regular on our live show. She's a podcaster, actress, director, author. You're going to love my conversation with Tonya Todd. Enjoy. All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest, author, actress, director, teacher. Welcome to the show, Tonya Todd. What's up?
Meow, and thank you for that. Your audience will understand the hesitation was the way you're talking about name pronunciation.
Right, it's Tonya. Now I got it. Now I can, it will just roll off my tongue now. Tonya. It's like, how else would you say it? Tonya.
There are so many ways people pronounce my name.
Is that the hardest name I've ever had to pronounce?
Probably not.
I had to do stand-up comedy. I had to once introduce Kostaki Economopoulos.
Yeah, far more fun.
And you can imagine how wrong I got it. And like, here it is probably 15 years later, and I can just go, Kostaki Economopoulos.
Right. Once you get it wrong publicly, you have to ingrain it into your memory, the correct way to say it, when you'll never need to say it again.
Right, exactly. So, Tonya, you do everything. You're an author, an actress, a director, a teacher. Anything else? Did I leave anything else? Podcaster, Olympic swimmer. That one I just threw in. I figured, but why not? Everything else. If you were to put those in order, what would, in your elevator pitch?
I would probably just encompass it under storyteller, because so many of those elements touch that. But if I had to choose one as my main, it would be writer.
So now when we say writer, do you prefer books or screenwriting?
I do both.
I know you do both, but like, which do you prefer?
I prefer writing books, because you get to put more of the world into a book where, screenplays are so stark. You can say some things, but really it's a collaboration when you're doing a screenplay, and you are just suggesting the things that you think would create this world. Once it's in the director's hands, it's not really your baby anymore.
So books is the ultimate kind of control for a writer.
Yes, if you have to pin me down for why, yes, it's the control factor. I like that.
Control is not bad. It's an artistic thing. I think anyone who's artistic in any way understands, like, well, if I go and I do my thing, I want to do my thing. If I got to do my thing and then be told, well, few notes for you, Tonya. Yeah, it makes sense. I totally get it. I was doing, as a matter of fact, I was doing stand-up comedy once, and I'm walking on stage and they're like, maybe be a little peppier than normal.
It's not my shtick.
As you're walking on stage, like that would be the equivalent of like a screenwriter note to me. I was like, because it really just screwed with my head. No time in the last hour we could have brought this up.
So that you could be prepared and not just going into it. I don't think you're good enough.
So you're living in Las Vegas?
Yes.
But Philly born, right? You're
not Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'm sorry. But Pennsylvania. I don't know why. Yeah. Right here. Born in Pennsylvania. But Pennsylvania born, I'm going to edit it and it'll just sound like I knew what the hell I was talking about. Pennsylvania born, When you're in Pennsylvania, what was sort of the early sparks that allowed you to follow this creative path? When did you know, like, this is what I got to do? This is who I am?
I was here already by the time I started considering myself an artist. So it wasn't in Pennsylvania that I learned any of that. It's just where my family is and where I really developed more a love of cats and animals in Pennsylvania. And when I realized that I didn't have what it took to be a veterinarian because I can't handle emotionally being around sick or dead animals, you have to power through that if you want to help them. And I couldn't. I'm too sensitive. But I like telling stories, and I liked acting out stories. And it's funny because I would act like animals. Like that's really how I got my start. Storytelling is behaving like different animals. As a child, I would pride myself on being able to do the sounds for each of them. And no, I will not do them right now.
Tonya, what does a cow say? We used to do that with my dog. Moo.
But that is really how it started and I didn't think I was performing. I just enjoyed animals, But ultimately I started writing stories about animals. I started writing stories about girls who would overcome their obstacles and outdo the boys in their situations. I wrote a story about a she-wolf who took over the whole pack to overthrow the patriarchy.
This is years before Barbie, so we're good.
This is many, many years before Barbie. This is as a child.
When you're writing all these stories, supportive parents, teachers, are they like, hey, we got someone here with a creative spark. We got to keep this going?
I have a mother who says I'm the best at everything, no matter how terrible I am. So she absolutely encouraged whatever I wanted to do. But because she's so positive and supportive, I couldn't really trust her praise, if that makes sense. And I did have one teacher who encouraged me, and I will forever adore her for this. But at the time, I didn't really think that anyone who looked like me would be successful in this industry. I didn't have a lot of visible role models of anyone who looked like me. And then even once we started seeing more diversity into the entertainment field, they still didn't look like me because I'm biracial. So it's like, all right, we're going to put you in a family, but you don't really fit in any family because we need this family to all be dark or we need this family to all be light. And you're neither one of those. So there's no room for you, which is funny because that's how my family is, me with dark and light people.
And now you teach diversity. So that's, if we flash forward for a second.
Right. I teach it in writing, and right now I'm teaching diversity and inclusion as a literary citizen within the Women's Fiction Writing Association. So what they want is to have just a more inclusive environment so that people feel more comfortable. So it's not really about teaching them how to write with it in mind. It's just being mindful of people's differences and making sure that everyone feels like they belong.
When was the first time you were watching something and felt represented?
It wouldn't have been based on my race. It would have been based on the character. It's more my gender, I think. Reading things like Jane Austen, where there are women with agency, not necessarily who looked like me, but that's where I remember first really seeing a character like me in a book was reading Jane Austen, because her characters have sharp tongues. They didn't just sit quietly and keep their opinions to themselves like a good little girl should.
I've got two girls. I teach them to speak up, never hold back.
Right. Don't make yourself smaller to make other people feel more comfortable.
Exactly. Who now would you look at and say Jane Austen is kind of the early, you're starting to feel a little represented? Is there any time where you were looking and like, you're like, okay,
there are more people now like Rosario Dawson, like Zawe Ashton, like Gina Torres, people with blended backgrounds who play characters that I would love to play. Especially Gina Torres, man. She plays strong, powerful women.
Oh, Gina Torres. Oh, Suits. Yes. Oh, she's a badass.
Thinking more like Firefly, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, well, I just finished Suits. And like, I have to go back and watch Firefly. It's funny. It's like one of those great shows, but I never, it's right. She is in that. But she is a badass in Suits. It was never the same after she left. I will say that.
And say, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, you haven't seen Suits? It's like,
no.
It like was one of those shows that like years later, kind of the pandemic-ish.
Right. There's a resurgence.
Yeah.
Years after.
Yeah, she's awesome. And now they're all in the commercials because they became famous again because of, the resurgence. So now they're like
Yeah.
in commercials together. All right, so that's awesome. All right, so you're writing loving animals, you're acting like animals. Not acting like an animal, like animals in a loving way as a kid would. And so when did you decide like, okay, but writing is for me? Like when you moved to Vegas, or it's like,
No, I'm really into comics and comic characters. And so when the Marvel Cinematic Universe started happening, I was very excited about that in the early days. And I used to put on these themed Halloween parties. So it's like the first year was the Addams Family. The second year was DC, but really like my entire family was the Bat family. And I was Catwoman, of course.
of course.
And then there was a vampire and werewolf year. And then it was a Marvel party, and I was going to be Storm, and my guy at the time was Loki. And I had this dream about Loki kidnapping Storm and brainwashing her into falling in love with him, but they really did fall in love. And I woke up and it was like this, the whole story was so vivid in my head. It wouldn't leave me alone. So I just started writing it. And I didn't really know about fan fiction. That's not a world I had ever entered. And when I told some friends this thing won't leave me alone, they're like, yeah, you're writing fan fiction. Everybody knows about fan fiction. Well, I didn't. And I kept writing it. And eventually I started writing pieces of it on the side because it's like, this doesn't really feel like them. I like it, but it's not them. And I kept putting these little elements on the side. And eventually that took over. I just abandoned the fan fiction entirely and started writing this entire novel based on characters who are very similar to Loki and Storm. They looked like them. They had many of their characteristics, but it was not that type of universe. And I just, 200,000 words later, it's like, oh, I think I love this. I think I want to write. I love writing. And, I started joining writing groups and polishing my prose and learning structure. And it just took over. I have not looked back since.
That's pretty cool. So what happened to that story?
So I worked for years polishing it, ended up getting an agent. When it went on submission, the publishers, the editors kept coming back with, is this guy a vampire? And they kept asking my agent, is he a vampire? And in fact, one of the editors, I want to say 2 chapters in, his first chapter from his point of view, called her and she's like, is this a vampire? Because you didn't say anything about that. And I'm definitely getting vampire vibes from this guy. And I love vampires. Like Dracula is one of my fictional crushes. And it's, come on, this character talks to me all the time. If he were a vampire, he would have let me know. But all right, I'll take a look at it. You have to listen to the feedback. Let's see what would happen if I just leaned into it. And I did this. I spent a December just revamping the novel. Haha. And it was there. Like all of the elements were there. And I'm going through saying, how do I have mention of a blood contract? And I didn't realize this guy was a vampire. So, I'm really annoyed. Like, dude, you talk to me all the time because my characters do talk to me. You talk to me all the time. How could you have not told me this? Well, why would I think that the character based on the God of Lies was telling me the truth?
Maybe they were just afraid that you were anti-vampire and didn't know how to tell you.
So I ended up switching agents because the agent that I had did not represent that kind of fiction. And I ended up switching agents, and now it's on submission again as a vampire novel.
All right. When you write something like that and it's maybe getting heat, on the verge of heat, you start thinking, okay, what would the next chapter, what would the next book be? Because that's what they're going to ask you, right? If
here's the thing, I wrote 200,000 words. That's way too long for a first book. So I already have what happens next. Like I have plenty of material for a series. And once I realized the vampire element, it opened it up beyond what I even originally thought was the ending and adds so many more complicated layers that I can't wait to write them. But I have another book that is with my agent right now. She's reviewing it. It's in the same universe, but the characters are not vampires. And then right now I am working on a Dracula retelling from Mina's point of view.
Okay. Well, we're not sure yet that second book's not about vampires. We got to wait for the feedback. You didn't know the first time. We can't be 100% sure.
There were no mentions of a heartbeat, a pulse, or warmth from this guy's skin. In fact, everything was cold. Whereas this other character, the male lead in this, he's Apollo. He is the sun god. So he's definitely not hiding from the sun. He is the sun.
All right. Very cool. The only fan fiction I'm ever aware of is like 50 Shades of Grey was supposed to be fan fiction from Twilight or something like
Right.
that, which I never understood. I never really watched Twilight, but
But did you read either series? If you read them, you would get it.
okay. No.
Really just controlling guy with so much money, he doesn't know what to do with it. And he is obsessed with one woman.
Well, that it ends 10 years of wondering.
And there's a niche for that. Okay. Like women want a man obsessed with them because it means he won't stray.
Hey, we don't want straying. I'm going to write my fan fiction right after this.
Yeah, the financial element is, probably security. Really, both of them are based in security.
Well, none of us want people to stray. So, I mean, I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
That's not true. Some people are in relationships where they're open.
All right, I should say I shouldn't put it on every. I
Right.
don't want people to stray. I wouldn't stray. Everyone else can do whatever they want.
Right, I mean-
We're not here to judge. We're not here to judge. We're just talking about writing and
I'm
movies.
just unpacking what it is that makes those books so popular with the female audience. And they want to be the center of someone's universe like that.
I'm going to write a book. Question 1, vampire?
And then your vampire might say, do I know you well enough to tell you that?
Exactly. We're on the same.
Can I trust you with my secret?
We're vibing here. So, all right. So we're right now, we're kind of waiting for books to be published.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The hell that is submission, being on submission, is you just sit around and wait for someone to say yay or nay about your baby.
It's gotta kind of suck. I mean, right? I mean, just the waiting part. I mean, it's like, oh, right? Because you put your heart and soul into this, and now you're just kind of waiting. I mean, it's just like you're just waiting for them to either say, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what you
Like
thought.
Gladiator times, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Exactly. All right, we'll hope for the best because I want to read the whole eventual trilogy that comes from the 200,000 words.
Until then, I'll just keep writing.
Keep writing. Acting. We balance acting and directing and screenwriting in with all of this.
I am new to directing. I've only directed a short film, and that was just as of autumn of last year.
Okay, this is Mourning Sacrifice.
Yes. And I know you'll find this shocking. It's a vampire story.
Yeah, there's definitely a theme with all your. It's funny because it was like I knew it was Mourning Sacrifice, but I didn't realize it was mourning. Like, oh, someone died. So I was searching MORN. I'm like, I can't find it, and then I eventually backed into it. But okay, so talk to me about deciding to direct. Wrote this also, right?
Yeah, started off as a short story. It was the first short story that I ever had published. So it was like that moment of, oh, someone actually likes something that I wrote. Like the first moment of, they like it enough to put it in one of their books. And it was a short story. It was a curated series here in Las Vegas where you had to have the theme of redemption and it had to take place in Nevada. So all I knew is that this character needed redemption. And so I sat down and started writing it, knowing what the ending was. Like I knew why the character needed redemption. And I started telling it third person because that third person past is my preference. And I started writing it and it was just a struggle. Like it just wasn't flowing naturally. And I had a mentor who said, just play around with the point of view. It's like, oh, I don't like first person point of view. That's usually some person who's looking in a mirror, describing themselves as pretty, but I don't know I'm pretty, just it's so annoying to read things like
annoying.
That. So all right, let me just try it. It's an exercise, right? You learn something through exercises. And as I switched over to the character's point of view and started just going through first person, it's like he just started telling me the story and I was just taking dictation. It flowed almost entirely in one sitting. All of it came out. And he was dropping clues here and there that he was a vampire. And it's like, well, I was really trying not to write a vampire story because my brother has always teased that I might have a thing for them. And that's not, I want to do serious writing. So let me write something serious about redemption. It's like, oh, but it just flowed. This was the story. This was the story that came out and it worked in first person. So I allowed it because it felt more real that way. Fast forward years later, I was doing something for NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And writing 50,000 words in 1 month was too much for me because, as you noted, I'm involved with many different projects. So I didn't have the time to devote to just sit and write for an entire month. But I wanted to be productive, more productive with my writing in November. So what I did is I converted it, I adapted it to a short film. And then I also wrote an original short film. So that's what I did for my NaNoWriMo. And then once I wrote it, I realized, oh, I want to be the one to direct this.
Sorry to interrupt. Just as we were starting to understand, will Tonya become the director of her short film or not? We will not know until we take this quick break. I do want to thank everyone for their support of their sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now we're back, and the question will finally be answered. Will Tonya Todd follow her dreams and become director? Okay, I'm being way too dramatic. All right, let's get back to it.
And how can I direct this? I've never directed anything. I didn't go to film school. So I kind of sat on it for a little bit. But as I was working on different sets as an actor, you start observing what's happening with the crew members. And you're seeing this person knows what they're doing. This person is an excellent producer. This person is professional. And then you also meet the people that I absolutely don't ever want to work with this person on one of my sets. So I kind of began collecting names in the back of my brain of people I wanted to work with once I was ready to take that step. And I started taking classes, reading books, compiling my arsenal, basically. And once I was ready, I wrote a grant proposal and received money from the Nevada Arts Council and National Endowment of the Arts to direct this project, which locked me into dates, which was last year. You have to give proposed dates. And once they awarded me the money, it's like, all right, time to assemble my team and it's go time.
That's pretty cool. So how much time did you have to, once they said go, kind of start, or how much time was there from the time they said start to getting the team and finding the right actors or actresses and then loading the camera with film? Do they do that still?
Digital. I want to say it was July is when they awarded me the money. And I filmed October and November of last year. So not a ton of time, but because I had already been talking to people about this is what I hope to do, I just need to start gathering the money for it. It wasn't like I was starting from zero. It wasn't, oh, great, now I need to start working on pre-production. I was already sort of working on that in the background.
How difficult or enjoyable or a combination of all the above was the process of taking the characters and finding the right person to bring that person or bring that character to life?
So I had been involved with casting for other people's projects, helping them with their things and, working as a co-producer on things, but producing your own work, your heart and soul is in it so much more. And you care so much about having the right casting. There was an actress that I came across years ago. I just happened to see her reel and she caught my eye. Like she was just really good. And I saw her dancing reel, her acting reel, and her fighting reel. And it's like, man, she's amazing. But she was in LA. So I figured she's a long shot. She's a SAG actress. Can't hurt to ask, right? Like I just emailed her and told her, I'm not ready to do this yet, but you seem very talented. And I would love for you to at least read for this role once I am ready to start casting. And she responded. We had a bit of back and forth conversation and left it at that. She was interested, but let me know when you're ready to do this. Then we get the grant and it's like, oh, I have to start casting. So I used a few different places, Facebook, backstage.com, and I reached out to her again. This was right before we started doing that, or we started the strikes too. So the timing was really, really precarious. And she's like, this is a short film. There's a little bit of grace with these things. Let me see what this is about. And she nailed her audition. Like she was so good. There was only one other person we even considered because she was so good. We compiled our list to bring back for callbacks. We had it narrowed down to 3 D'Artagnans, which is the lead male, and he's the vampire, and 2 Celines. We did our callbacks. Let me make sure that she is someone I can actually work with. Let me talk to her in person. It was over Zoom, but it was still, is she someone I can instruct? Because you might get this extremely talented actor and find out they're not willing to take direction, or they're one note. They can only do it one way. So yes, they've blown away the room for their one interpretation. But if you ask, can you shift it this way? They can't. They can only do it the way they originally interpreted it. And no, she was very teachable. And the three D'Artagnans gave us such a hard time because they were all so good and so different. None of them had the same qualities. And in the end, we ended up awarding it to the person who felt the heart of the piece the most. He's not how I pictured the character, but he was in love with Celine. And that at its core, it's a love story. It's not a romance, but it is a love story. And because he delivered his lines in a way that made me feel like his heart was so into this situation, it's like, yeah, that's not something that the other two had. Like they had ferocity, or they had presence, or, they just nailed their lines. This guy didn't get all the lines right, but he got the heart right. And that was far more important. And then once we were on set, he knew his lines. Like he had more time to prepare. And I will tell you, that was one of the best parts of directing this film. Is it was days into it until I realized we haven't had a single moment where the characters didn't know their lines. And that was true for the supporting characters as well. It was just, wow, they've been so great. It didn't even occur to me to be worried about it.
That's great. That's awesome.
It really was. It was because I have been on sets where you're sitting there and the person who is supposed to be the lead is the person who knows their lines the least. And you're just like, oh my gosh, we're going to be here for hours because you didn't do this is your job. This is part of your job, is to know what you're supposed to be saying here.
You got one job.
No, you have multiple jobs, but this is a pretty big part of it,
Okay. So where is it? We watch it yet, or when can we watch it? Or
no, it's still in editing. It's been through a few passes of editing. We're nearly done with the editing. There are a few pickup shots and then some green screen plates that need to be filmed. Then we tackle sound and color correction, and composing has begun as well. But until we get picture lock, none of that stuff can be finalized.
Wow, that's a lot of process.
It really is, like so many steps. And if I didn't have such an amazing team, I wouldn't be this far.
Is it so far matching your expectations? Like you saw your vision, you're getting a kick out of seeing your vision come to life like this?
There are sometimes it's better, actually. Like there are moments where this was not planned, this was not in the script, but the way the lighting fell or the way a shadow fell, it's telling part of the story. It's like it's showing part of the story just in the way the lighting worked. And that wasn't me. That's having people who know how to set up lights. That's having a cinematographer with an artistic eye. It's only me in the sense that I picked spectacular people to be a part of my team, and they are proving themselves to be just beautiful artists. I feel privileged to get to work with them.
That's amazing.
It really is. It's like, how did I get here?
So when it is done, do you do the circuit, or do you get a distributor?
That's the plan. Definitely didn't do this to make any money. It's to run the festival circuit, make new contacts, learn more about the business, and take it to the next step so that I can start writing and directing feature films and possibly making it a little easier to find the money to back these projects. Because for this, I had to do a crowdfunder in addition to that. Like I had the initial chunk was that grant from the Nevada Arts Council, but then I also needed more. I wanted to be able to pay the actors. We needed fees for locations. We needed costuming. There are so many things that you need to pay for, like good sound. You don't want to just let your friend, here, I'll do sound for you. No, I am going to pay for sound.
Sound is very important.
It can ruin a film if the sound is terrible.
Yes. In terms of, we said short film versus feature film, how long is it, the short film?
It's a long short film, definitely, because, short film can be like 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20, but mine is running closer to the 40 to 50 minute mark right now. At this edit, we'll see. There are places where we just have a placeholder and that's holding several seconds. So we'll see once we actually get the shot, how much of it we need.
Okay. So it's a extended short film.
Yes. It's nowhere near long enough to be a feature film, but it's very much on the long side for a short film. Probably not the best choice for a first short film, but it's a learning process. This is what happened. Can't take that part back now.
Right. It's all the next steps just take longer because you're not editing a 15-minute film, you're editing
Right.
45-minute film. So everything's exponentially takes longer at each step.
Exactly.
I'm interested, like with the music, like, did you just have to like go, like, did you have an idea with that? Or you just have to kind of trust someone to watch it and then they interpret it for you?
It's the same person who's the cinematographer. He's actually doing the editing too. So he's invested. Like he's doing the editing. He was my DP, and he is already thinking about the composition and shared a few things with me. And because he knows the story, he was there for it. He knows what these moments are supposed to be like. He knows where the upsweep needs to happen or where we need to bring it down or where it needs to feel tense. Sounds
like an amazing creative process. Can't wait to see it. Hopefully it'll end up somewhere where it's easy for everyone to see it after you do the...
That's always the challenge, isn't it? Like getting some sort of distribution that the rest of the world can see it.
Right. Is it easier now to do that though with all the streaming services? Like you can get like Amazon to do it or Netflix to just kind of put it somewhere at least?
I wouldn't say that Netflix makes it easy. It is much easier to get things on Amazon than it used to be. And, worst case, there's always YouTube, but I couldn't possibly do something like that until after it runs the festival circuit because it can't be readily available while you're doing that.
And so then this, in essence, the love and the labor, not for directly money at this time, but it sort of becomes your business card.
It's more for opportunity, right?
Sort of like your resume. This is a live resume, a live working resume.
Exactly.
So kind of show you're good.
Business card is the right way to say it. It's like, this is what I have. This is what I've done. This is my mark.
That is awesome. Also awesome. We talked about diversity earlier. You mentioned to me you teach diversity.
Yes. So a few years ago, I was the education chair for Henderson Writers Group. Essentially, my job was to bring in speakers once a month to educate the membership. I took that seriously. They're all different genres that we are writing. They're all different age groups. They're all different skill levels. So I wanted to make sure that we had something for everyone. Well, because I was one of the few writers of color in this group, I was the person that people came to for questions about, how do I write this character? It's like, that's not my identity at all. But here I am having to represent all of colordom,
Right. It's like, I don't speak for every biracial vampire.
That's right. I think you're on to me, sir. Where do you live? But I was the education chair, so it is my job to help them. And so between those two things, it became very clear that we needed some sort of class on this. And so I ended up partnering with different groups around town, the LGBTQ Center. There was a coffee shop called Grouchy John's that donated the refreshments for this, which, if you're going to have people there, you need them to be fed and alert. There are different teachers in town that I brought in. So I had a panel of 4 people who have written with diversity and inclusion in mind successfully. I brought in a DEI instructor who happens to be one of the most amazing poets I've ever met. And we did a 5-hour workshop free to the public because of all of the support that we received in town. And this was another thing where we received a grant from National Endowment of the Arts and Nevada Humanities so that we could pay the speakers. Because I think that if you are being asked to give your expertise on something, you should be paid for that. It shouldn't be something that you have to give away for free. So all of the money went to the speakers and everything else was donated, which was amazing. And so we had this huge workshop. And because of the success of this workshop, I kept getting asked to go to conferences. And this was in 2020, like it was February 29th of 2020 when we did our in-person workshop. But people were still interested in the topic. So then it's like, well, can you do something like this online? Couldn't do another 5-hour workshop like that, but I could put together another panel. And so I started doing panels at different conferences. And eventually I started getting asked to just do it myself. And after so much investment in this, so much, I'm sitting there taking these classes repeatedly. I was doing my own research and study on the side. It got to a point where I do know this stuff now. I can teach it. And so I started teaching in different forums like lounge writers and different conferences. And then last year, I did a big workshop on this at the Atlanta Writers Conference. And as a result of doing that, someone attended that class and spoke to Women's Fiction Writing Association and recommended me to do something like that there. And that's where they said, well, we don't really need someone to teach writing with diversity and inclusion in mind. We've already done that. You know, you want to make sure that you're not using stereotypes and tropes or just checking boxes to have different characters there, but you also want to represent the real world. But they said they already have someone who taught that. What they need is to make the environment feel more inclusive so that all of their writers feel like their voices matter. That started this year. It's an all-year series, and pretty much every other month I'm going there to either discuss the topic or deal with the Q&A and then assessment period for what we've been doing. We've done 2 of those so far. And the information that's coming out of there, it's just amazing. We actually had to problem solve in session at the last one, which was kind of interesting. It's like someone brought up an issue, and in bringing up the issue, it created another issue. And it's like, oh, well, let's use these skills that we've been practicing to sort this. And we did it.
That's cool. I love that you're teaching people how to make the world better. Things are better when, like you said, people do mix and match.
Right.
And everyone loves seeing themselves, like you said earlier. It's like people love seeing pieces of themselves. And
one of the things that we're learning through this series, though, is that someone doesn't have to look like you to be like you. They're connecting beyond skin or sexuality or their body's ability. It's like they're finding what their common connections are that have nothing to do with what other people would label them.
that makes sense. I look nothing like George Clooney, but yet here I am thinking, oh, we're one in this. No, I'm saying, no, I get.
See, what I was thinking is that
No, I know. I'm just
you
kidding.
and I look nothing alike, but clearly we're both cinephiles.
Yes, that too. Better example. That's why you're the teacher. And I'm just right. It's like it can be interests, it can be things that is just there's a lot of things that make us who we are that aren't just who we are. Right. It's that
aren't superficially things that other people can recognize.
All right. So, and you're a podcaster. I mean, on top of everything, you also podcast. You have an older podcast that I don't think you do anymore, 52 Love podcast,
Yes.
and the FEMME show. That one's active. Everyone can find both of these. There's many, many hours of Tonya out there. So tell me about your current podcast.
52 Love series, that was based on a blog series that I did because I wanted to make myself write more frequently. I was doing all of this stuff, volunteering for all of these different writing programs and writing groups, and I realized I'm not writing anymore. I'm not really working on my own stuff. So I will dedicate one blog post a week that no one's going to read. I'm just doing it to make myself productive. But it turns out people were reading it. I wouldn't say a ton of people, but enough that they were like, hey, they're responding, and they suggested that I turn it into a book. Like, okay. I ended up getting my first agent because of that. And in talking to her, came up with the idea to create a podcast. And on that podcast, I would bring in different creatives, whether they were other podcasters or writers, directors, artists, dancers, singers, actors. They would come on. I would assign them one of these tips. So it's 52 Love is one intimacy tip per week. I would assign them an intimacy tip. They would try it with their partner, and then they would come on the show and talk about how it went, and then get to, plug whatever it was that they did creatively. So I spent a year doing that, and it was fun doing a podcast, but the production side is so hefty, which I'm sure you know. It's like there's so much to do. There's the editing. You have to make sure everything sounds good. Mine was also a video podcast because my publicist was like, yeah, you're an actor. You need to put your face out there too. You can't just do an audio podcast. Okay. And, so I had a t-shirt made, but I had to hire a producer because I did not have the time to learn all of that extra behind the scenes stuff. I learned that I don't enjoy editing. I enjoy editing words. I do not enjoy editing audio, and I really dislike editing video. It's just not my thing. Something I can do, I choose not to do it. So when my friend Ria Her name is Ria Kerrigan. She's in the UK. She had a podcast called FEMME on Film, where she just wanted to talk about film made for or by women, or that was unfairly maligned in the media because it was for or by women. And she realized this is a lot, and having to come out with content every week was just too much for her. So she asked me and 3 other ladies to join forces with her. And this way, we're taking some of the burden off coming up with content. If we're each recording on our own, but she'll handle the production because she loves doing that stuff and she's really good at it. And now between the 5 of us, we come up with 2 episodes a week.
Oh, that's a great approach. That's a cool approach, actually.
Yeah, I love it. This collective is wonderful. And we have Lit for Life. We have Fine Cut, where someone talks about just one scene that they enjoy for 20 minutes, like just 20 minutes talking about one scene. It's great. There's theater and there's poetry. There's still FEMME on Film. We bring on creatives that we support and listen to their journeys, whether it's books, graphic novels, whatever it is that they do. And then I do active activism, which is helping people to be more active in their activism and helping people recognize you don't have to march on the front lines to be an advocate for something. There are many different ways that you can be supportive of things that matter to you, whether it's donating money, donating time, creating a whole fundraiser for something, or just simply sharing these things. Wherever you are in life, there are ways that you can help.
You're like what is it? What are you up to? Quadruple threat? Is there I don't even know. Is there one higher? It's amazing. Everything you do and everything you do has purpose. It's, you're an inspiration, Tonya Todd.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with me. Where can people hang out with you on socials?
Across social media at Ms. Tonya Todd. That's MSTonyatadd. My website is www.misstonyatodd.com. You can find me on the FEMME on podcast, and you can join my newsletter.
So much, Tonya, you can dive into after the show. So great. Thank you. So I'll put all those links in the show notes as well. So if you didn't write it down, I got you covered.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. How amazing is Tonya Todd? Can't wait to see her short film. I encourage everyone to head on over to her website, check out her podcast. Well, with the interview over, it can only mean one thing. I know the episode is over. They just go so quickly week after week. Can't believe it. One more huge thank you to Tonya Todd. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me. And I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.